and welcome to CX Today. My name is Charlie, I'm the senior editor here, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Martin Taylor, Director of Content Guru. Martin, it's great to have you back. How are you doing today?
Yeah, very good, Charlie. So great to be back again.
Yeah, it's always great to talk to you, and we've got a very kind of interesting topic to discuss today, and that's kind of the latest trends that are emerging within the CRM world. And I think the first one that will be really kind of great to hear your thoughts on is the kind of advancing AI that is now taking place within the CRM marketplace. So, kind of my first question to you would be, how is AI enhancing CRM solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it feels like AI is everywhere, of course, and throughout the customer engagement, customer contact space, we're always hearing about it. So it wouldn't be right if it didn't have a big role to play around CRM, and of course it does. So if we think about the usual general purpose technologies in AI, we're thinking of things like natural language processing, image recognition, the sifting of huge amounts of data, some of it unstructured. If we think of at least the NLP part of that and the sifting, then those are directly applicable into CRM. So if we think of natural language processing first, taking meaning from words that are written, words that are said, and particularly the said bit is the kind of newish thing that we've been able to do over these last couple of years. So once we derive the meaning of the interaction from the customer, what they've written, what they've said, or it could actually be pictures and files that they've sent increasingly as well, then the very first thing we can do is input those into the CRM automatically. So we're updating that CRM as we go, and also taking sentiment. Natural language processing is very good now at deriving sentiment. It used to be more or less a kind of made up thing. Yeah, sentiment, you can tell if they're angry or not, but actually the confidence is a lot higher. Again, that's really evolved in the last 18 months or so. So if you think about it, finding out what someone wants, of course, who they are, and how they're feeling about things, inputting that into a CRM, you're making that a lot more of a platform for personalizing that experience. And at a more mundane level, you can have an automated wrap, for example, so you're not having to have the agent do that manual wrap at the end of an interaction, which takes them out of that front line. And then, of course, the other aspect is the data analysis. So personalizing, in this world of hyper-personalization now, that's a massive thing. And AI, great route to really personalize that interaction. And also fueling knowledge management. So knowledge management increasingly sitting on top of CRM, suggesting articles and content to the human agent so that they know what to say next. So that's cutting down on training time, it's cutting down on workload, it's cutting out hopefully that 10% of call time when you go on a call that is typically spent looking things up while the customer sits around waiting. And customers sitting around waiting is definitely not something that is a viable way forward. And then, of course, once you've got all of this data going into your CRM, it doesn't all fit into the neat forms. A lot of it is the values in those unstructured notes. And I remember being at a conference hearing one person in their sector, they said 80% of the valuable information is in the unstructured notes. And typically you've had to manually read those, but now, of course, with AI technologies, those can be ingested. We can derive the meaning from those, however big they are, and really get usable, actionable information out of that big pool of data. So definitely AI, big role to play in enhancing what CRM can do and making CRM really deliver for people. Because there's still a lot of disappointed CRM customers out there where the kind of promised land never really has been delivered so far. But CRM plus AI is going to make it much more likely that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's very exciting indeed. Just kind of the sheer volume of kind of use cases that you kind of just alluded to there definitely shows the potential of AI within the CRM space, kind of from sentiment analysis, which is plays a huge role in kind of the customer emotion, which is a big part of customer experience design these days as well, to the kind of knowledge management benefits, to the organizing unstructured data, to the kind of post-call automation. There's so many kind of great use cases that you just highlighted there, which can be kind of really, really huge for a lot of companies' contact centers as well. And there was also one thing you mentioned towards the start of your response there, kind of image recognition. And I know this is something actually that Content Guru is kind of building into its chatbots as well. And I think that's a very kind of exciting area. And it leads me quite nicely to my next question of kind of the next trend that we have of self-service via the CRM. How is the CRM now starting to enhance kind of self-service options from traditional portals to new chatbots?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, self-service increasingly a big thing, and from the pandemic era onwards, it's only gotten bigger, and we're seeing it across all age groups and consumers. They want to serve themselves wherever they can, and for increasingly complex interactions as well. I mean, it's decades-old behaviour, really. The ATM instead of going into the bank. You probably can't find either of those two things now, but the human behaviour precedent is well set. So again, self-service with the CRM aspect, chatbots, often where that interface is, they can pull information from the CRM, again suggesting those resources or online information for the customer to go to. So we've found that quite a lot. Again, going back to the pandemic era, people inquiring about things that are clearly COVID related, and actually there's up-to-date information available. Let's just send you that link. Let's post that now, and you can go and complete your own research and hopefully go on and do your transaction. But of course, machine learning makes the value of those suggestions higher over time. So obviously learning algorithms are all part of the fuel that goes into the AI side of things. So CRM, enabling self-service to be more powerful, more accurate. And of course, you're still going to have the need to go from self-service to the human now and again. And we're not going to be able to automate everything. So it's about making an intelligent routing decision. So we're going to the right queue, the right department, the best agent to complete that transaction. And again, passing over the information from a self-service journey to the human agent with some suggestions about how to go, perhaps to take a decision, or where maybe there's an empathetic aspect involved. And then, of course, the basic fact of the data you're gathering in the self-service feeding the CRM. I mean, it seems obvious, but again, it's why, and it still can happen. Why would you have a chatbot that isn't updating the CRM and just operates in its own silo? But there's still a lot of those around where the chatbot and the contact side of things are seen as two different silos, different tech, not really talking to one another. And if you're going to go that way, you're not ever going to have this 360-degree customer view. There's a good stat, actually, as well as making people happier self-serving, it's also a money saver. SuperOffice Network, they came up with a great stat recently that companies providing self-service can save up to $3 million a year. So there can be big savings in doing this, as well as happier customers.
Yeah, again, lots of really, really great stuff there, and kind of particularly like your point as well, kind of building an escalation pathway to kind of keep the context from a self-service conversation and feed that on to an agent in kind of a true omnichannel fashion. I mean, omnichannel is a word that's kind of used a lot nowadays. That is, as far as I can tell, kind of the true kind of pathway to a complete, as you say, a 360-degree view of the customer from a variety of different channels. I think, lots of stuff there. And I now kind of want to reflect on a conversation that we kind of had at the beginning of this call. And that was kind of the use cases that process automation, CRM-enabled process automation can kind of can come up with for the contact center. And kind of you mentioned after call work process, and I was wondering kind of for the next trend, kind of what other processes can the CRM system automate?
Yeah, I mean, process automation, a bit like CRM, it's one of those things, particularly with the R in front of it, robotic process automation. It's got a slightly kind of sexy feel to it. Sometimes a lot of money is being spent, but there isn't always the kind of big transformative delivery, or hasn't been to date for many users. Because often that process automation has really been a kind of keystroke emulation on steroids, as I call it. So you're taking information from system A and effectively putting it into system B. And whilst that's valuable, you're saving on maybe a human agent doing that, and you're compensating for these systems not being joined up. You can only really do fairly basic things with that. But when you CRM enable your process automation, you can then take it to more complex business processes, and those are kind of higher value. So you're able to then to speed up service delivery, make your resource management more efficient. And it can also be used, of course, on the outbound side of things. So it could be for lead qualification in your marketing function, or it could be used in a proper kind of customer experience in a crisis type scenario where automation really comes into its own. So the power companies that we work with at Content Guru, typically when they have an outage, it's affecting hundreds of thousands, sometimes many millions of people at the same time. So getting those proactive messages out as an incident evolves, and getting them actually the right information to the right people at the right time. So the power is not going to be coming on at 1 o'clock in your area, it's going to be 4 o'clock now. That's bad news, so we need to get that bad news out promptly, because probably the previous expectation was that it's going to be on kind of lunchtime, and when lunchtime comes and goes, you're going to get a lot of angry customers and kind of unplanned contact demand coming into you. So definitely, inbound and outbound, I think that process automation, when you add it to the CRM, so at the right people's information and the right time and the right information all come together, is going to make that whole area much more productive, and deliver on some of those early elevated expectations that people had for what process automation is really going to do for them.
Absolutely, and I really love that example that you gave of how the CRM can enable a proactive customer support strategy almost. And I think that kind of in its way kind of deserves to be its own trend almost, and it's kind of definitely seeing kind of a big growth within the CX market, and as is hyper-personalization as well, which you kind of earlier referred to. That's kind of our next trend, kind of this idea of the CRM enabling greater personalized customer experience. So I think my question to you would be kind of how is the CRM enabling this future personalization?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we started our business in the late noughties, actually one of the first kind of themes that we came up with was mass personalization. And people said, what's mass personalization? How can it be mass and personalized? And the idea is that you could deliver on a population-wide basis individual knowledge. And that was quite a big thing back then. But now, of course, the game's moved on. It's hyper-personalization. So you're really getting a really totally personalized experience, as if the person you're dealing with or the organization you're dealing with really knows you, not just what you've bought recently, but what you might want, what you might not want to hear about. So you're getting the right information, the right communications, the right products and services put in front of you. So it's a good stat from Epsilon that 80% of consumers are more likely to make a purchase from a brand that provides personalized experiences. So 80%. So if that's not a reason to gather your customer data together and offer that personalized experience, I don't know what is. So pulling all the customer data together into a centralized CRM, that's obviously been the goal, to create that 360-degree visibility of the customer. In practice, it's not always possible because you've got multiple systems of record. You very often are going to need to have an orchestration layer, really bringing together those multiple systems of record so that the information that's needed to provide that personalized experience is available in quick time and doesn't wait 2-3 years or however long this sort of process of having this all singing, all dancing CRM is going to take. Because let's remember, large organizations, it's very common to have 10 more different CRMs and similar databases within different departments. And they're not just there to provide the customer experience, they're there for people in those departments to do their work. So it's not an easy job moving them. So our focus is, of course, on delivering that personalized experience at the customer front end, hiding all the kind of messy plumbing out of sight. So cross-channel interaction history, we want to see how the person has behaved, how they've contacted us across different mechanisms, what's their preferred way of contacting, maybe at different times of day or days of the week, and tailored information so that agents can offer up the right products and services based on inquiries they've made, not just purchases, but things that they've been looking at. So if we can kind of gather information from the digital footprints around our sites and apps, and then of course using the CRM to screen pop articles and information to the human agent based on the customer inquiry history and kind of what we think they're going to be wanting to see, and avoiding things they don't want to hear about so we don't annoy them. So hyper-personalization without being creepy, I think that's our aim, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think kind of going back to the start of your answer there, I kind of really love the analogy almost that you gave of moving away from kind of a mass kind of personalization, maybe of segmenting customers to a more of a strategic individualization, easy for me to say. And I think that kind of process change has been really interesting, and how contact centers are doing that, as you say, with kind of fewer than 10 CRMs has been fascinating. And then all the kind of use cases that you gave as well for how contact centers can use the CRM to do that, and how kind of marketeers can do that as well, to make sure that they're messaging customers the relevant stuff at the right times. And there's so many interesting ways that we could go with that. I think that's another maybe a complete other discussion perhaps, but I think maybe time to move on to our final trend, and that is kind of the growing trend of CRM integrations. I think it would be really interesting kind of to hear from your perspective how a company how a forward-thinking company should approach CRM integration.
Yeah, I mean, obviously integration of your CRM and your customer engagement process is absolutely crucial. I suppose one of the almost theological questions has been, can the CRM just do it all, or do you need a customer experience platform? And I think the answer to that is the latter, really, that the engagement with the customer is bigger than the storage of the data about that customer. It's got to be a real kind of living and breathing thing. So you think about the ways we communicate now, it's not just we put a phone call in, so the voice path that's traditional, there's video on that voice path now, but you've got to bring in things like email. There's still so many organizations where, in fact, it was a great story someone was in about a week ago now, and they were saying an insurance company, they called up, there was the CEO's voice on the line, they were quite impressed. Then they waited 15 minutes. Then they were told there was no one available and that they should send an email, and they were told that email would have a 48-hour turnaround time. So bringing things like email into the customer service, customer experience function, instant messaging chat, also the expectation there is it is instant, it's in the name. SMS, Internet of Things, could be remote patient monitoring, it could be a smart meter and a power company. Bringing those in, that's a pretty specialist communication platform job to do that. All the social channels, of course, WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Trustpilot, Viber, I know we're working on TikTok at the moment. So it's a continually evolving space. And actually, there is also that aspect that it's not necessarily a case that you're going to have a central store in one place. If you're a large organization, typically the sort of ones we deal with, there's going to be a few of those. You've acquired other organizations, they've got their own. It's all about bringing those together. So either having one really brilliant CRM or working with what you've got, multiple CRMs. Sometimes there are bespoke databases, sometimes kind of homemade ones. We've done in the hundreds of different integrations now. So if you've got multiple systems of record, at least have one interface so that your agents have got the information that they need to service that inquiry. Obviously, a great example from last year in the UK, the 2021 census, where we carried out the platform work for the Office of National Statistics of the UK government, bringing the right information and only the information that's needed, putting it on the agent desktop to help with that inquiry. Opening up all of the record systems would not only been cumbersome but actually inappropriate, because there's lots of information that isn't needed to service the inquiry. So we want to ease the employee's workload at the same time as making it convenient for the consumer. Because in any survey of people who work in contact centers, their number one complaint is always workload. So as we add channels, let's not add workload. And as we add more information systems, again, let's keep that workload under control. So we're very much, like a few others, specialists in working with the CRM makers, and if necessary, using kind of integration tools or RPA even to talk to things that are resistant to integration. So yeah, absolutely. CRM integration's got to be part of your CRM planning, and it's got to be part of your customer contact strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm really kind of looking forward to seeing your TikTok integration that you kind of just mentioned there. I think that's quite innovative in kind of CRM contact center space, kind of as is the Instagram integration that you kind of recently released. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that. And it's interesting that you kind of highlighted a few ways in which kind of Content Guru are kind of innovating within the space, almost sort of what sets them apart within the space. I think my final question for you would kind of be building on that, and that's kind of how is the Content Guru kind of CRM solution, the customer knowledge system it's called, why is that an excellent CRM choice for many companies?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we introduced CKS because of the plethora of CRMs out there, and also because some customers wanted what they call a stripped down CRM that had more basic functionality, but could operate on a kind of platform-wide scale, and it would also be an integral part of the agent desktop. So CKS has really exceeded our expectations, both as an orchestration layer, which is primary purpose, and actually as a standalone, we call it basic still, but it's not that basic anymore. It's a pretty good CRM platform in its own right. And we even had some solution sales led by CKS, which if we went back 5 years, we'd never have imagined that. So it's good because it's cloud-based, obviously. So over the last couple of years, pandemic era, the fact of it being in the cloud and the agents and users being wherever they need to be, that's been a factor. That's not obviously enough in itself. It's about organizing the data from multiple third-party systems and multiple communication channels in one place. So I think that's what's different about it. If you've got your coming TikTok or your Instagram, and you've got your voice calls, they're all feeding into this pool, and either it's in one place or it's updating underlying systems. So that mediation layer function, that's been a really important part of it. And generally it's about getting that 360-degree view and putting it in front of the customer service operative. So it's directly there, it's on their workspace, they don't need to go anywhere to find it. Increasingly, it's serving up things that they're going to need. And now, of course, with CKS knowledge management on top, it's got a specialist module for that continuous prompting, which hopefully will see a significant cut down from a typical 12-week agent training time. So again, cutting down the cost of onboarding agents whilst cutting the workload. It's a virtuous circle. We want to reduce agent churn because it's costly, average sort of £5,000-6,000 of direct costs to replace an agent. And if they do churn, cutting down the cost of retraining the replacements. And then I suppose the last point would be that it is part of the wider Storm platform. So you've got AI, automation, written and spoken services in there, and having it all together has been an appealing combination for a lot of our customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think again, lots of really great points that you made there, and kind of the ease of use is a kind of a big one as well. I can definitely imagine from what I've seen of the CKS platform, and that ability to kind of harness data from everywhere and simplify data strategies is very important, as kind of a lot of organizations are kind of really looking to advance their data strategies right now, especially kind of with the end of with cookies coming in 2023 and stuff. So I think, yeah, it's a very interesting topic, and I think we've discussed kind of lots about the latest CRM trends today. So I think that's a great place to end today's chat. Thank you very much for joining me, Martin.
Thanks, Charlie. It's been a pleasure.
Excellent, as always. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Bye for now.